your patients start to feel something in their body. It doesn't feel like a big deal. They don't have to change their life much. It just is there. And then they don't notice it anymore. And as it gradually gets worse over time, they don't realize it until one day, boom, something is significant. It impacts their life in a way that causes them to pay attention. Welcome to another episode of the Physician Growth Accelerator, a show where we break down your private medical practice systems into vitals, give you the tools to diagnose root cause of what may be restricting your growth, and prescribe what to do about it. I'm your host, Zed Williamson, and everything you experience in your business, whether you like it or not, it is the perfect outcome of your current system. And the power, the value that you can get from wrapping your head around that concept is significant. It means that you are actually in control. You can take a step back, identify where the constraints are in the practice, and then do something about it to create a different outcome. And sometimes, the word growth gets thrown around. And what does that mean? For some people, it might just mean business health. It doesn't necessarily mean busier, but it's important to grow because that business health is what puts you in a place where if you want to stay independent as long as you want, you can, without outside pressures creeping in. If you want to create an exit strategy for yourself, you can, and you can do so on your terms instead of someone else's. And that's what's really important to me. I believe in independent private practice, and I believe that you, as an independent private practice owner, should have a moat around your business so that you can create what you want out of that business. A couple of years back, it was relatively soon after my oldest son started driving, which is by far one of the most insane moments for a parent when their teenager starts driving. And he turned out he was a good driver, didn't run into a lot of issues or run into a lot of anything. But one time I took his car for a ride a while after he started driving. And I get in the car, I start it, and low tire sensor pops up. I'm like, all right. I back out of the driveway and I start driving, and I'm holding the steering wheel lightly, and the car is pulling pretty significantly to the left. And so I take my hands off the steering wheel, and it's like the car wanted to do a U-turn. I mean, it was significant. So I grabbed it, and now I'm forcing the car to go straight. And in my mind, the first response is, good Lord, how did he not realize this? Why didn't he do anything? He's driving with tires that are not inflated completely, a steering that is pulling hard to the left. I don't know if he hit a big pothole or whatever, but it was very obvious to me that something was off, and he had never brought it up and never done anything. And here's why. It's because likely he faded into that experience, meaning one day he started the car, tire sensor light pops up, but nothing was different in his drive. It didn't affect him immediately. Maybe when he was driving, it started to slightly pull to the left, and he thought to himself, maybe that's normal, he's a new driver. And then he doesn't notice how much it starts to continue to pull to the left more and more, month after month. I get in, and I clearly feel something is wrong. Now, the interesting of that fade in is there's a reason he didn't do anything about it. It's not because teenagers are inherently lazy. It's not because he didn't notice at all, but it's because it didn't matter, meaning it didn't affect his life in any way. It didn't keep him from driving to school, driving to work, driving to rugby practice. So that's why the brain kind of ignores those little warning systems. And I bring this up because this is exactly what happens with your patients. Your patients start to feel something in their body that's similar to the car slightly pulling to the left. And because it's fading in, it doesn't feel like a big deal. They don't have to change their life much. It just is there. And then they don't notice it anymore because that new normal is now the new normal, so you don't notice that it's different. And as it gradually gets worse over time, they don't realize it until one day, boom, something is significant. It impacts their life in a way that causes them to pay attention. And that's when they try to find you. So what's interesting is when I wanted to talk to my son about this, I wanted to speak to him from that standpoint of Are you just not paying attention? Are you a safe driver? What are you doing? What were you thinking? It's really not the greatest way to start a communication if I truly want the communication of him growing his knowledge to be the outcome, even though that's what I wanted to do. And what happens with patients is when they come to your office or call your office, they can feel a very similar experience of maybe what an angry parent would say. And it's not on purpose from the practice standpoint, but from the practice standpoint, people in the practice don't really understand that someone faded into what they're dealing with. And by the time they try to reach your practice, they have likely thought about what they're dealing with in a negative way, meaning, what does this mean? They also are likely associating previous experiences with healthcare, either with them or family members. So imagine they remember when their grandmother had surgery on something and it didn't go well. They're taking that experience and putting it on their own life, which then continues to have them put off coming to you. And by the time they make that first phone call, if the practice answers that call, well, first of all, good job if you answer it, because many times you don't. But if you do answer that call and we speak to the patient from this, we are the experts, we know what's up, I can't believe you're calling about this, here's the answers to your silly questions, and sure, you can have an appointment. Imagine how the communication was started with that patient and how it's going to affect what that patient does going forward. Let's say the appointment is booked, they show up to the office, maybe the waiting room seems kind of full, they're starting to click other healthcare experiences going off in their mind. They go up to the front desk, and the person is not engaged, they're focused on other work, and it's like, yeah, okay, sign in here, fill out this paperwork, and bring it back to me when you're done. Okay, we'll be with you in a minute. And then you sit as a patient, and you don't know what's going on. The practice knows that there's going to be a wait. Why? Because there's always a wait, and they just expect that everyone should know that. That's kind of the subconscious thing that's happening in the mind of the people who are working at the practice. But that patient is now taking that ambiguity of sitting there and bringing in more bias, more negativity about what potentially can happen. And it's affecting how they will experience the practice. So let's say it's 20 minutes late, 30 minutes late, 40 minutes late, and the patient in their mind goes, gosh, should I go up to the front desk and just double check? And then they talk themselves out of that because they'll say something like, well, that's ridiculous. They should definitely know I'm here. It would be embarrassing for me to go and remind them I'm here because clearly they know I'm here. And so they just start to stack up that angst and concern. They're already worried because they're coming to you after feeling something that's probably been fading in over years. Finally, they get put back in the room, and again, they're in this room by themselves, wondering. Physician walks in, bing, bang, boom. Physician knows exactly what they're talking about. Patient doesn't really hear them because they have all this stacked up bias, fear, angst about the practice experience so far and what they believe about it, and they don't move forward with treatment. Or they do move forward with treatment. And now treatment happens, maybe there's post-op instructions, but post-op expectations aren't set. And now think of what's happened with that patient, all right? I want you to kind of go back to my son's experience is he knew at some level something was not right, but it wasn't affecting him in a negative way, so he didn't do anything about it. And any experience that he would have had with any adults would have been kind of talking down to him. Which then puts him in a less likely place to learn, understand what's going on, and make best decisions for himself. And now this is happening at your practice. You have all of this knowledge, this foundation of the patients you've helped, the people at your front desk know, and what happens is it becomes so normal to them that the interaction with new patients is they assume subconsciously that the patients know just as much as they do. Like, hey, this is the step. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. We're going to do this surgery. After the surgery, you're going to follow these steps. This person goes home just basically frozen in fear, not understanding what's supposed to happen, what's not supposed to happen, and they're patiently waiting for that next visit to make sure nothing is bad. You wouldn't ever design that experience if you were a for-profit retail company. I mean, imagine if you were a restaurant and you dealt with somebody in that fashion. And there's no reason that we shouldn't be mindful of this in private medical practices. This is where you can absolutely separate yourself from big healthcare systems, kind of the bureaucracy that always feels like it gets in the way of a patient getting the care that they want and that they deserve, and that gets them the outcome that they were actually calling for. Because the only reason they called your practice in the first place, they were experiencing pain and frustration and their life was impacted. But the reason they called you is because they had a glimpse of hope. And your existence gave them that. And that glimpse of hope tends to get smashed into oblivion by the interaction with the practice. It can actually even start with your website. Imagine that patient coming to your website and seeing content on the website, maybe videos, and it's assuming the patient already knows too much, and we're just filling that patient with fear and angst about the experience. So what do you do about this? If you break all these things down, right? So imagine we start with this global existence of humans that are attempting to get in touch with your practice. How many of those patients in that first experience feel like your practice is there to guide them through what they're scared of? How many of them feel like your practice is there, understanding where they're coming from, and you're instantly making it clear to them that you're going to be helping them? And then after that, how many of those people show up to the practice, and then you can ask the same question? So if you were to think about the experience of a patient as it relates to them going through your practice, from first kind of mentally self-raising their hand that they have this issue that they're dealing with, all the way through potentially a treatment, let's just call it a surgery to make things simple. At every point in which they are kind of passed to the next portion, is the practice doing everything it can to reiterate to that patient that it is there to be a guide to help them through this struggled part of their life? Because if it's not, the outcome is they're not going to perceive the experience as positive. This is potentially the person that's going to leave a bad review. And, if you've listened to this podcast, my personal opinion about reviews are not that great. I'm not a big fan that there's patients out there judging a practice based on stars, which rarely have anything to do with the actual clinical ability of the practice or the providers. But it's the case. It's negativity bias. If they see that one-star review, it almost overshadows all of these other positive reviews because they're coming in with that angst. They only have a glimpse of hope, and it doesn't take too much to squash that out. So think about going through your practice as a consumer and put it into another business that you deal with. Think about going to a restaurant that you like and try to mirror what is it like for your patients compared to what is it like for the patrons of that restaurant that you really enjoy. Or maybe there's another service company that you feel very comfortable with. What would you have to change about your experience with that service company for it to match the patient experience with your practice? If you have to change a lot, then that means your practice is really set up to turn a lot of patients away. And you have the opportunity, because someone is really coming to you in a place of need, and you're a person that can guide them to a solution that massively impacts their life. And when you impact a patient's life, it massively impacts the people around them. And I feel that there's value in taking responsibility for that on the practice side. Instead of saying, well, this person they're hard to deal with, or they seem like they were in a good mood today. Take into account what baggage they're coming to you with. And can you create a system and a process that actually helps that person along the journey in a way where they actually enjoy the experience because it's clear, expectations are set, you feel as a practice as if you're guiding them, helping them achieve an outcome that at some point throughout this process they didn't think was possible. Anytime you've ever recognized that, I know it's one of the greatest feelings in the world when you help someone realize that they're going to be able to achieve something that at some point they thought was impossible. That is a pretty powerful feeling. And it can kind of feel like a squishy topic because you want to just focus, well, we do good work, we help patients, they have a problem, we fix it, we get them through. If you can click it up a notch and really be that practice that helps guide them through, the impact is massive to the experience of your team, to your experience. It really helps everyone kind of go to bed excited Sunday night to wake up Monday morning. And the best part of it is patients love it, and they will brag about that experience to everyone they know because, unfortunately, it is not common. If you ever want help with things like this, always feel free to reach out to the Physician Growth Accelerator team. We have some tools and resources on the website, physiciangrowthaccelerator.com. Some simple ones is the practice diagnostic. It's like a symptom quiz that you might give to a patient, but it's for the health of your business. And it's easy for you to see, okay, where are we possibly missing the boat? Where are we creating these constraints for the patients that is negatively impacting the business health of my practice? And I hope you use the tools. It'll be eye-opening and help you identify places where you can start and really create that experience for the patient that they go brag about. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Physician Growth Accelerator.